There's two other things I want to ask you about for sure. One is Kecksburg. So you were boots on the ground as a youngster investigating Kecksburg. Over the years, there have been a lot of explanations for what it might be, a lot of debunking attempts. Where are you on Kecksburg now?
Well, I was 16 years old when it started breaking on the news that evening around the greater Pittsburgh area. I started documenting it. I was not out there. No, in fact, I wasn't even driving yet, and I was writing all this information down. And I started the next day to try to track down some witnesses, but there was hardly any names in the local papers. But over a period of weeks and months and years, I began to get more data in from relatives and friends and neighbors of people who were involved. And it was actually during the 1980s when things really began to open up on the case. And since then I tracked down, I can't even tell you how many hundreds of people who had direct and indirect knowledge of the case. And I found out there was so much more to the story that nobody knew about. And I can give you a little bit of a summary. Again, we could talk for days about the Kecksburg case. But so it's December 9th, 1965. And that evening I'm listening to radio station in Pittsburgh, and news is breaking about this brilliant fireball that was seen from the tip of Ontario, Canada, over Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. And about 4:47 p.m., as it's getting dark in this area, multitude of reports from local people seeing this brilliant object moving across the sky. They were calling the police department, the radio station, the newspapers, TV stations. Some people thought it was an aircraft that was on fire. So what we later found out was this object moved over in our area in the Westmoreland County. I found out it moved over to the city of Greensburg, and as it moved out Route 30 east, it made a turn to the south. And then as I tracked down and found out from witnesses, it was seen by a lot of these small people in the small communities as it moved out towards the mountains of Laurelville. And then I was told it kind of hesitated, then turned back, began to track back towards Kecksburg, made another turn and dropped down into the woods. So the people I talked to said this thing was moving relatively slowly. It made change in direction along the trajectory and made a slow descent into the woods. Nobody reported seeing any parachutes in the sky or on the ground. So what I found out was that some of the local residents that saw this thing come down right over top of their head, making no sound as it they didn't hear any major sound. A few people said they heard what they thought was some type of a hissing noise, but they get down into the woods soon after it had fallen. They come across this large, metallic, acorn-shaped object, kind of an off-gold bronze color, semi-buried in the ground. This thing is approximately 10 to 12 feet in length, about 8 to 10 feet in diameter, one solid piece of metal, which is important. Because as one witness who was only a few feet away from it told me, and he was a machinist all his life, he said, it looked like somebody took liquid metal and put it into an acorn-shaped mold. So there's no rivets, no seams, no fuselage, no wings, but on the raised up part of the back of the object, like on the acorn shape, he said there were markings on it that looked more like some type of symbols than writing. And luckily, because of his background, he was somewhat familiar with Cyrillic, so Russian, Soviet back in those days, and he said that is definitely not what it was. And there is no, over the course of the evening, hundreds of people descend on that small community after hearing the radio news being broadcast all around Western PA. And so first you had civilians who went in and found it. Then you had volunteer firemen who were coming in for a search for a possible downed aircraft in the area. That's when they came across the object as well. And then you had, again, all these civilians. Then you had reporters there from all over the Pittsburgh area. They became part of the story. So you had reporters from all the newspapers, major radio and TV. They either saw or interacted with the military. And then you had the military, which was so interesting from so many people. During the evening and during the times of the late afternoon, evening, you began to have military vehicles come in from different directions. There were Army and Air Force reported by various people, including the media people who I interviewed. So whatever this object was, it was of big interest to the government. They responded very, very quickly. I later found out from independent sources that the object left that area around 1 o'clock in the morning on a large military flatbed tractor trailer with a tarp over it. And many, many people saw that. And I was told it was It went to Lockbourne Air Force Base near Columbus, Ohio. Got there during the early morning hours of December 10th. I was told that they set up it. They backed the trailer and the object into a hangar. They set up a security perimeter around it, and they were given a shoot to kill order to anybody approach the hangar without the proper clearance. I was also found out it only stayed there for a short time. Then it continued on to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And later I was contacted by other people who told me exactly what building they took it to at Wright-Patterson. It was not the infamous Hangar 18.
So today, what do you think it is? I've heard all kinds of attempted explanations. It's a Russian spacecraft. It's the Nazi Bell. It's some secret NASA project. People who don't want it to be unknowns will just throw out an excuse and hope it sticks to the wall.
Well, again, there's so much more to this story, and there's a lot of things that I'm still waiting to be able to confirm, hopefully someday. So there's a little more to the story than this out there. But I have always kept an open mind. There have been multitudes of theories on this from the time it happened. I remember a witness I interviewed back at the time who was interviewed by an Air Force officer who told her at that time that it was a Gemini capsule that had been expelled in the area, which of course we know that was not the case. Then over the years there have been many, many other theories, and right through the 50th anniversary of the case, when I think it was 3 or 4 other theories came out on it. And all these theories are really interesting, but nobody, one, has the evidence to prove any of these theories. They're all theories. A lot of the data doesn't fit. A lot of the theories we've already dismissed. And there's certain details that are still very interesting and unusual. And I keep an open mind to all possibilities, but until we have definitive data, we still don't know for sure what this thing was.
So as far as you know, there's no explanation you've heard that fits all the facts.
That's correct.
The last question I want to ask is about what happened this year in Pennsylvania, this wave of activity back in February and March. What was going on? What were people reporting?
Okay, well, first of all, none of this is like the 73 outbreak when there were hundreds of reports that, during that time, and Bigfoot, that was completely different. But we at times get these waves of activity, and this past year, and sightings continue again all the time, even right through the last few days, reports are coming in. But this was probably late February, early March of this year. Began to receive reports from many, many areas around the greater Pittsburgh area. So it wasn't just one location, it was various counties and other areas of the state as well. Just some of the activity was going on. In March, 3 white circular lights and a triangular configuration reported in Cambria County. By the way, there were numerous reports up in that area, even in recent weeks. There have been triangular-shaped objects reported in more recent years, and during this time of activity, we had a report of a large black rectangular object, a number of reports of small spherical objects, some kind of bright orange, low to the ground, hovering around people's properties. And again, these are really interesting reports because some of these sightings are occurring in very populated areas. And so this went on for weeks and weeks. One of the other researchers I talked to was one of the fellows from the BORU research group up in Butler, Pennsylvania. He said he had been receiving numerous reports of fireballs and spheres during March up in Butler County. Here's one couple reports that he was receiving too, just show you the interest, the type of case coming in. He said on March 8th, a witness observed a shiny, bright cigar-shaped object in the morning sky. Sky was clear. The object did not appear to have any wings or tail, and the witness said it was so bright he had to squint his eyes to view it. The witness was very familiar with aircraft, stopped his view and got out to get a better look. The object moved into a cloud that never exited it. By the way, that's been going on for the last several years. Even in daylight, we're getting reports of solid objects that enter clouds, but they never exit from the clouds, and the clouds sometimes dissipate and they don't see it again. But here's an interesting report from March 11th up in Butler County. A man was in his kitchen that evening when he began to feel a strange vibration and heard a low rumble. He realized a sliding glass door on his deck was vibrating. As he looked out the back door, he sees this very bright, very large pulsating round object just above the trees at the edge of his yard. That object illuminated the backyard as though it was the middle of the afternoon. He stepped out on the deck and was in awe by what he saw. At that time, he felt a tingling sensation. His hair stood up on end, and he had chill bumps on his body. He called his wife. He ran in to get a camera. When he came back, it was gone. But again, that's just an example. And George, we didn't even get into it today. There are so many cases. We have detailed cases of huge objects over populated areas, sometimes with electromagnetic effects that are just amazing. And these are the kind of cases the new government investigation should be looking into.
Stan, I'm so glad that you're still at this, still plugging away, doing great work. I want to stay in touch.